So welcome to my second ever podcast. I had a lot of fun the second time, so I decided to do it. Or sorry, I had a lot of fun the first time. I decided to do it a second time, but I have an equally excellent guest. His name is Justin Mitchell. He focuses on the web development side of the world. He's actually the one who I learned web development from. I'm not a very good web developer, but I built my website. It hosts all my content, accepts payments. You can register users, all that kind of stuff. And I learned all of that from him. I thought he would make a great guest on the podcast. So Justin, introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, Mitch. I appreciate it. And stoked to hear that's how you learned how to do web development. That's awesome. It's always like humbling to hear from students that have gone on to do other bigger, greater things. It's always nice to hear that. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here. As far as like my history and story, like I actually more aligned with being an entrepreneur than being a software developer. At least I did for a very long time, because I always wanted to control things. Like I wanted to control my life. And I've noticed, like through growing up, I've noticed that, you know, my parents had some level of that themselves, owning businesses or in and out of owning businesses and stuff like that. So it seemed really appealing to me that I could be my own boss and just dictate when I work and, you know, what I do. And that's even more important to me now that I'm a husband and a father. Like it's way more important to me now than it's ever been.
Yeah, of course.
Which is great, because the last, you know, decade or more, I've been working towards that. So that's something that like every day you sort of have to pinch yourself about waking up. So entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial thinking sort of got me along those lines. And then, in high school, I started a clothing company. I'm like, okay, that's going to be my first business. I'm in Southern California, and like, especially at the time, it was very like the thing to do. So this is the early 2000s.
So even way back then, entrepreneurship became the cool, because I know right now it's the thing. Like if you talk to any kid in high school, my younger cousins, who I think one of them's turning 12, like their thing is like they want to make a YouTube channel, they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to sell clothes. Like that is the cool thing. So I didn't think it was that, like I was in school back then and I don't remember it being that cool, but I guess you were in California, so different environment.
Certainly a different environment, like upper middle class, Irvine, California, if you're familiar with it, which is a very technical and forward thinking area. It's not far from where Quicksilver was started. And I think a few other surf brands, Volcom, like some of these brands that were like Quicksilver was already well established, but some other new brands are starting to come out. So it was already sort of entrepreneurial in that sense. And then my parents, some friends of family friends and whatnot, also entrepreneurial. So I think that was sort of the influence. It wasn't super popular at the time. I mean, there certainly were other people doing it, but like it was like, if I remember correctly, it was like one grade ahead. There was like one group or a couple guys would have a clothing company, and then it would be the next grade. Like we were like the grade that had, me and my partner, we were the guys that in our grade had the clothing company.
Right.
It seems like it was like every grade that did, but like apps and software and all that stuff, that wasn't, like, I would be shocked if anyone had something like that back then, or even thinking about a YouTube channel.
Well, I mean, Facebook was probably the big thing. People started joining Facebook around, I think, 2008, 2007. So after that, that's when it started to really build awareness, and people were like, "Oh, wow, like this is a big deal."
Yes, totally. And like movies like The Social Network, it, like had some influence, right? Like where it's like, hey, these guys are in college, they're dropping out of school and making a ton of money.
Yeah.
I like that. A lot of that stuff sounded really appealing to all sorts of kids. For me, it was about like controlling my schedule more so than making money. Obviously, like money and having more money allows you to control your schedule a little bit more, or maybe not so obviously, but it can allow you to control your schedule a little bit more. So a buddy of mine and I, we just decided to start doing it. And I didn't have very many technical skills at the time at all. Like, I mean, I knew how to use a computer, and at the time, like MySpace was the thing. So it's like 2002 to 2003, somewhere around that time.
Some HTML, maybe, you know, make your MySpace page look nice, that kind of stuff.
I didn't even know that then, right? So luckily for me, I had a family member who was friends with a founder of a clothing company called The Hundreds. And also my ex-girlfriend's dad was really proficient in the Illustrator equivalent at the time called CorelDRAW, or CorelDRAW, excuse me. So he introduced me to like this idea of vector drawing, and then the hundreds guy introduced me to making my own website because we didn't have any money. So I had to learn how to digitize. So my partner was a creative one. He would draw something on a pen and paper, and I would learn I'd have to digitize it. That was my role, digitizing his drawings and making them into a vector drawing, which then could be printed on a T-shirt, right? Still pretty true today, roughly, as to what the process is, right? But it's a lot easier to like get all those things done.
Yeah. Like for example, I'm wearing my own clothing here, and
there you go.
All I had to do was get a logo made. I found a guy to make the logo because I'm not an artist, and I started a Shopify account. Hey, I got T-shirts, I got hats, I got cell phone covers, I got coffee mugs, all these things, and it's no cost. I don't have to hold inventory. People buy it, they get it, I get a cut. So
yeah, and like I think that's a result of some of this subculture of kids around the globe doing this sort of thing. Maybe not around the globe, but certainly in the United States, and like certainly in Southern California, because like my school, with us having a clothing company, that was like a lot of people. And the screen printing process back then is you have to design these things. You'd have to get them in a vector drawing, which is what Adobe Illustrator does really well now. And then you would send it to a screen printer, and then they'd get them printed, and then you'd order them in bulk, and then you'd sell them. You wouldn't get one-offs back then. I mean, you could, but they were like $50 versus, you want them like $5 or $10, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that was like my first foray into getting more technical, was learning CorelDRAW to do this, and then eventually learning Adobe Illustrator and some Photoshop stuff. And it's specifically for that business. And then of course, around that time, MySpace was popular, and like, people were talking about, oh, you should get your own website and stuff like that going. I'm like, yeah, probably. That's probably a good idea, but we didn't have any money. Right. I tried to go hire somebody, and it was like, they said something like, it's going to be like $1,000 for like 10 pages. And I'm like at the time, I'm a broke high school kid. Like, we were lucky enough that our parents helped us buy the T-shirts to get printed. Nobody saw the value in paying $1,000 for a website at the time. I mean, some people did, certainly, but like, it wasn't like it is today, where it's like, obviously you need a website if you're going to make a brand of some kind, right?
Yeah, you don't exist if you don't have a website or a YouTuber or something. You literally don't exist. Yeah,
and that was certainly becoming the case back then. Like, I definitely wasn't unique in wanting a website, but it's still very early on it. And neither one of my partner or my parents, none of them would give us $1,000 to go and make a website. So luckily, I was introduced with the founder of the Hundreds, Bobby Kim, if I remember his name correctly. There's a fairly popular clothing brand, or at least it was. And he was like, oh, I didn't know how to make a website either. Go buy a Dreamweaver book and follow it step by step and make a website. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds doable. And it turns out it's really easy to make an HTML and CSS website. I was under the impression that it would be super, super hard, super complicated. But this guy gave me the confidence to just like, hey, make a website. It's not that hard. Just get a book and do it. And that's still the case today. Making an HTML and CSS website is really, really easy to do. So like, I mean, that advice, like, I still hold true. And I think it's true for many, many other things within the software industry as well.
I think so too. I agree with that 100%. Like, not only if you have no knowledge, but just like in general with any kind of software, if you want to learn it, the most efficient way to learn it is to literally just dive in with no knowledge at all, and Google things. It'll be surprisingly easier than you think. Like, it honestly will.
Absolutely. And so I was fortunate to have some connections to get these things going, right? And some mentors to help me too. So like even getting a website on a server back then, I mean, there might have been services like Amazon Web Services. I don't actually remember. But there wasn't that many services that made it super easy to put your website online like there is today. And so a family friend had a server. He's like, you can put your website on this server. He sort of like introduced me to getting it on there, and FTP and all these like sort of basic technologies. he introduced me to a lot of that. And, you know, I'll never forget this. And this is probably part of the reason why I do what I do now in respect to teaching. I asked him about the servers and these books that he had. And I'm like, oh, well, like I had an inkling of interest for it, but definitely not enough. And he was like, oh, it takes years to learn all that stuff. You probably don't want to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And I just didn't learn the back end technology things then. So when I was about 15, 16 years old, I could have started learning back end technology then. And it took me years later to actually start jumping in. But his influence was like so much to this point where, geez, I have no idea like what skills I'd have now if I learned how to do back end technologies back then. Perhaps they wouldn't be any different. It's really hard to see, but I do know the lesson I got from that was if anyone's remotely interested in software, I just like unload on them like how much they should do it, right?
Yeah,
like, it's just like you got to follow that interest. And I didn't have any other family members that were in the software game at the time that could have said, oh, no, like it's doable. Like what we're talking about with HTML and CSS, server-side technologies is certainly more complicated than that, but it's not that much more complicated.
No, you can figure it out. You can honestly figure it out. It's
totally.
just time. It's just time.
Just time. And like, you know, I think that's why I started teaching in the first place is like looking back to like the younger version of myself. I wish I had somebody who could have like taught me how to build the websites I can build today, even if they weren't to that level, but at least getting started to like hook me in. Because I'll tell you, once I first built my first web application with a back end and a server, like I was like hooked, man. I was like, this is so cool. So, because for like a decade almost, I just need to say this last part. For like a decade, I thought it was some mythical, magical thing that I just wouldn't ever really do. It'd always be somebody else. So
yeah, I have a very, very similar experience, different sort of triggers and things like that, but very similar experience. Yeah, I have entrepreneurs in my family too. All of my sort of mentor figures in my family, my dad, my grandpa, all entrepreneurs, but obviously tech wasn't around back then. So almost none of my family went to school and, you know, are in the tech world. So this is magic to me, like you said, like I knew nothing, right? So high school, obviously I didn't pursue any of that. I thought it was just this magical thing that I would never do. Just no reason, really, just didn't think so. I ended up I went to university for physics and engineering. And what did it for me, you had a guy who just said, no, you can just learn it, right?
Yep.
With that book, you mentioned, he said to you, no, just go learn it. It's easier than you think. For me, what did it for me was I took physics and engineering and I said, well, I can learn how to build a website. I did that. So it's a different way that I got the confidence. Basically, that was it, right? Like you got it through somebody else who just said, no, learn it. I got it through doing really hard stuff. And I said, well, now I feel confident, so I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but but I feel the same way too, right? Like if I would have been introduced to anything, like, you know, when I was 12, I would have been so addicted to it that who knows what would have happened, because that's what happened instantly. I started programming and I built, I don't even remember what I built. I think I just built some basic, website with HTML and CSS, and I saw it online. Like I went to a different computer, logged into it, saw it, and I was like, wow, that's badass. And hooked, right? So I get it. I understand 100%.
It's the amazing like creativity with little stakes, right? So like I also like woodworking, but I don't do it nearly to the point where I would like to. But the idea of it is so much harder. Like if you want to do woodworking, you have to buy saws, you have to set up a facility or go to one and find one. Like there's just a lot more layers that you have to do to be creative in that outlet. And with software, you can do it anywhere in the world, which is another part that I found, you know, so fascinating by it. Even when I first started doing a website or a web-based business in the first place, I was like, oh, wow, like I have to do that prior to even knowing software. It's just so fascinating to have that flexibility. But then once you find something like software that does provide a lot of value and can just be a hobby, it's amazing. I mean, another reason why I'm convinced that I would have really been into it is I was super into like the games like Sims or SimCity, where you'd spend hours like trying to essentially program these cities or the individual lives. It's not called programming, it's called playing a game. But once I started learning programming, I'm like, wow, so many things about that. Like you like in The Sims, right? I don't know if everyone's played that game, but it's a simulation of a life. And you sort of like direct a person or a video game person to do stuff, right? You say, oh, go to work. That's running a function, right? And you have them do it over and over again. And you just sort of have these routines and stuff like that. I mean, you could break all those things down to being, oh, this is a lot like programming. It just doesn't feel that way. And that's what I try to do with my teaching. It's really hard though, because it's still so technical. So it's hard to like make it as fun as a game, but
no,
it's fun for me.
That's a good analogy actually. And that's really interesting. I wonder if that could somehow be used to teach programming. Like that would be a really interesting way to teach programming. Say you had some game like The Sims and you were writing it like whatever, maybe the GUI and the graphics were there already, but the things that you wanted the people to do, you would have to write the code for. Right. That would be an interesting way to learn. Like that would, you know, because you're playing the game, but you're writing the code to run the game.
Totally. Like I think Apple has some of that on their playground. I think it's something like that kind of. But like, yeah, I could see how that might be a good introduction. But at the other side of it is like, personally, I never really wanted to design games. I'm not really at that point right now. Maybe in the future, but like right now, I just haven't found too much interest in it. But I would say that maybe if you're playing a game that you built, perhaps it also will reinforce it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because like it's one thing to like add this abstraction to make it like a learning environment for a game, and it's another thing to play a game and have that same feeling while you're learning, where it's like, whoa, this certain parts of this feel like I'm challenged, like I am in some games. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Yeah, it would be a tricky one for sure, because I definitely don't think you would get that creativity stimulation that you get from like building something new yourself, because it, you know, you're playing within the walls basically there. Like I never personally liked websites where you'd have those interactive code teaching things. I hated them. I absolutely hate them. So I just like to like actually build something like your stuff. I actually learned a lot from your stuff that I carried over into my stuff that I teach. Just like the method of, well, for one thing, completely building a project and even breaking down to like the individual videos, how you start by explaining kind of just generally what we're going to do, maybe the problem you're going to solve, and then you practically just do it. So, and then at the end of the day, over the whole course, you see the whole flow of like, run into problem, solve, run into problem, solve. And as you're going, you're moving the needle forward. And it's just a very, very practical approach. And I think for me personally, that's the best way that I learn. And I think a lot of people like that too.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. That's why I approach it that way. Sometimes it gets repetitive though. And that's something I've been trying to hammer out in the content, because, you know, when you start a new project, every time you start a new one, like depending on who you're teaching, they might want the absolute basics, or no, skip to the good stuff, you know, like the things I've never done before. That's a little tricky as a teacher, doing these entire projects. Like I recently, a few months back, I released an e-commerce one, a brand new e-commerce one, the most comprehensive course I've ever done. And it's literally every step I'm building an e-commerce site. So if you've worked with me before, like let's say, for instance, you did try Django 1.11, it would benefit you absolutely to jump into e-commerce. But the beginning, if you went through it and you understand it, you might be like, oh, this is taking a little bit too long. But for the absolute beginner, it's like, oh, it might have that same experience as you, or that's what I'm hoping. So I'm still tweaking that. Like I've seen something that's really good. I think it was one of the guys at Egghead that was talking about this, where they watch, or I mean, sorry, they just do one concept, and it might be a minute long, it might be 2 minutes long, and they don't really explain a whole lot. They leave a lot of the explanation as to why they're doing this to the description. I mean, they might sprinkle it in here and there, but they certainly don't have like the 10-minute ones that I do. They do like more of a minute and a half, and just really get that one concept, which I find super interesting because then in the future, when you're stuck on like, oh, how do I send email again? You can search just send email and it looks for that one thing. You can watch a 1-minute clip, done. You don't need all that extra context. So it's a really tricky thing. I'm curious, like, how do you approach that?
Yeah,
right
this
now?
this is I think a problem that all content creators run into because when you started saying it, I just started like, yep.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem. It's like because you want to create new content because you have new content to focus, but no matter what, when you're doing project-based learning, you have these sort of I'll say they're mundane, but they're not really. They're just things that beginners would want to watch. But things that people who know your content, they don't want to see that. They've seen it 10, 20 times already. So yeah, what I've been doing to solve this problem is what I've started doing anyway is I get really focused on a topic. Like my newest course is going to be Google Maps and Google Directions. So Google Maps SDK for Android and the Google Directions API. Those two things I'm focusing on. So, but I am building an app. The app will register users, log in users, join chat rooms. You'll be able to make chat rooms, talk in chat rooms. But all that stuff I'm not teaching. So what I'm doing is I made a starting point basically on GitHub where they start from the point where the app is built other than the Google Maps stuff. Gotcha. And then so we jump in right away. We're only building everything that matters with the Google Maps stuff. And now also going back, I might do a separate course just on that chat application basically. That way people can kind of choose, but you still run into the issue like you said where you can get like I can't do those 1-minute clips where you just learn because it's a project-based thing. So for people to get the full picture, the videos just have to be long. So it's got to be like introduce the problem. What are we going to do? How are we going to solve it? Solve it. It takes time.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like the component-based approach too. And that's actually what I did with this e-commerce course. Like there's a core to it where it's like, if you're a beginner, you can go step by step. It's not going to really leave you too far behind. Granted, I know I talk a little fast for some people. Mm-hmm. Some people I talk a little slow. But every time I've tried to adjust that in the wrong direction, it ends up hurting, I think, the content of the course or how quickly I can get it completed so those more advanced people could go through it. But anyway, so the e-commerce thing, I separated just like that into different components. So at the very least, if you want some like a shopping cart and that's all you want, you can just watch that one section. And it's very similar to that. I think that's very appealing because then at the end of the day, you have this really comprehensive thing. And if they want to go from the beginning, I do really like also jumping into like having them just building one thing. That's pretty cool. But I want to tell you a little bit more about how I got to this point too, though. As far as like teaching and software development in general, like I kind of skipped over a part of that.
Yeah, I want to hear it all.
Yeah. So I was in college and I went and studied entrepreneurship. So I went for business, you know, and it goes back to that idea of like, I wanted freedom. I wanted an internet business. Like those things were getting very popular. This was 2005. I graduated high school. So it was around that time that I was starting to think a lot more about this.
You were an entrepreneur. You were an entrepreneur first. You weren't a programmer. You only learned to program because out of necessity, basically.
Right. As a result. And so like I started getting away from the clothing thing. I still thought it was like fairly cool to have this clothing brand and stuff like that, but started getting away from that. And then I went to college and got more involved with some stuff and had a software development business where myself and my two partners, we would sell software. Like Web 2.0 was coming around. Apps were getting really close to being released, but not quite there. Like mobile applications were almost there because 2007 is when the iPhone was released. But we were doing this like sort of consulting software development company. And I did not know how to code. I knew HTML and CSS, which most developers would say that's not really knowing how to code. But I knew at least that. So I had some technical proficiency, but I certainly didn't know how to build applications. And that was really challenging to try and run a company where we outsourced the software development all around the world. like the 4-hour work week talks about,
Yeah,
basically.
right. I read it. Yeah.
And like being the middleman in that too. So like we were selling to companies that we would then end up farming out to have developers. So we were just that middleman, a project manager, if you will. And it was really tough. Like I was not well suited for that sort of environment, because you had your reputation on one end to get the client, and also on the other end, but you had no control over the end product and how it ended up looking. So that ended up falling apart naturally. And then the next thing was this idea of like helping restaurants find their service staff, which I think is still a need. I just don't know if the industry is ready for it. But help them find their service staff in a more efficient manner by using software. And still didn't know how to code really, but I knew how to do a landing page. So I built a landing page. What that is just really one sales page where you try and capture their email, for example, right? Or their information, so you can follow up with them and sell them down the line. So I knew at least enough to do that, built this landing page, had a lot of good progress up front. That was able to get me to what I think of is the sort of entrepreneurial problem with non-technical entrepreneurs. Like, they approach technical issues in a few different ways. One of them being, I'm going to find someone to partner with, right? Just got to find someone to partner with. They'll be my 50-50 partner or something along those lines. They'll do all the technical, I'll do all the business, right? That's one way. The other way is to then hire that person. Like, if you have money to do it, you hire that person, or you convince some sort of investor to give you money to hire that person, or convince some sort of investor to partner with that person. Those are often the ways that business school teaches, as well as business people, jump to. Like, that's often the first thing that they do, and that's what I did, right? So like, I mean, from encouragement from my peers, and I can't say for sure if the professors were saying this, because mostly it's like, do whatever you need to do to get your thing done and out there and with customers and all that. So I'm not sure if they said that example, but the general feeling there was, find a partner, find a technical partner, have them build it. Like, you should not spend your time learning and figuring out how to build this. You should find a technical partner at this point, because of the time and all this stuff. I'm like, all right. So I followed through with that, found a technical partner, didn't get fundraising, because I actually don't think that's necessary for software. We can get into that if you want later. But so I found this partner. We started building some stuff, and he was really good, but I still didn't have the input, or I couldn't actually do a whole lot as a technical founder or a non-technical founder. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't contribute in a really meaningful way, other than to break things. Like, like they would build something and I'd be like, no, that's wrong. It's not what it should be. So then my partner would get super frustrated. We'd rebuild it, retool it. And the reason I was there is because, number one, I didn't know how to design software, really. Like, I thought I did. I knew how to make it, like, do the user interface maybe, but I didn't really know what took to go on the back end to make that software happen. So I was providing direction on how I thought it should look. And if it didn't look the way I thought it should look, then it was like, oh, now we need to just scrape that functionality all together and do something different. Mm-hmm. And that kept on happening. And like, engineers call it feature creep, right? I was like the worst case of that, because I didn't know the technical side, and I was also trying to push for something that I thought was revolutionary without really testing all the little features and the benefits of them. And again, contributing in a meaningful way, other than telling my developer or my partner essentially what to do. I mean, or collaborating with them and try and break things and all that stuff, right? So this is a long-winded way to say that it didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
The industry was not ready. Like, my partner and I, we had a pretty good working relationship. We made it happen. It ended up being a decent software. It wasn't great, but it was a pretty good version for what that he and I put together. And then he had to get a job. He was in the U.S. Like, he was a visa sponsored student. He graduated a year after me, so we had a lot of time to work on stuff. But he had to get a job to keep his visa. And our business was making nothing. Like, we had no money. We were on CNN. Like, certain things seemed like we were
right.
Up,
I saw that on your profile that you were on CNN, or I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw it somewhere. Yes, you were on TV with your idea, and it just didn't take off.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, like we got some traffic spike. We got some people that wanted to work with us, like work for us, like as an intern or a developer or a salesperson or whatever. But like we didn't end up doing any of that because there was no real business, you know? So like my business training, this whole time while I'm building this, I'm like, we don't have any money coming in, zero. We need to figure out a way to get money coming in. And, you know, a lot of times it's like, hey, sell the software first, get your customers to pay for the development, and then start building it from there. And I suppose my previous experience with that software company, where I couldn't build anything, like it sort of dissuaded me of doing that, because we certainly took money from customers then and built some stuff that just didn't work out. We ended up refunding them money, and it just like was just a really bad situation. And I suppose like that was part of back of my mind of like, I'm not going to go to these restaurants and tell them, hey, pay me for a whole year. We'll get this thing done. Get like 20 or 30 restaurants to do that. I don't know. I was like really hesitant to do it that method.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you failed essentially, and you had people that you failed on. I mean, and you took their money. It makes perfect sense that you wouldn't want to do that again. Yeah.
And but on top of it, it certainly wasn't like, hey, take my money. You need to build this thing. When I talked to restaurants, it was like, okay, that's cool, but we use Craigslist, so we're going to continue to use Craigslist. That's what they did. And there's still so many restaurants still do that because it's still very effective in advertising open positions.
And it's free.
In metropolitan areas, some metropolitan areas, it costs money to post jobs.
Oh, okay.
So like in my area, it does. In LA, it does. In New York, like there are certain areas that it certainly did, but the free part wasn't even the issue. The issue that software was going to solve is the influx, like turn it into more of like a dating style thing where it's like, oh, I like these candidates. They're looking for a job. Let's interview them, versus, hey, we're hiring, and then literally thousands of applicants could come in for one position. Especially at that time, that was 2007, 2008, when a lot of people were starting to lose work. The economy was taking a dive. So like in many ways, it was like really ripe for that. But none of the restaurants wanted the technology. They didn't care like I did. And you know, if you contrast that with like the software industry, I feel like something even like that does exist now, but there's probably a lot of different ways, or I know there's a lot of different ways of how you can hire software staff or software engineers, because there's such a demand for it, right? Like the supply is potentially limited in certain areas, and then you got to go through all this hassle to find this person, where restaurants on the other hand didn't have that problem. So nobody wanted to buy it either. But I was stuck in this mindset, like I'm convinced this is going to work and blah, blah. So anyways, long story shortened, my partner had a good job, totally understood. We both still believed in the idea from those early tests, from the demand that we saw initially. He got this job, and I was left with, do I pursue this idea? Do I go get funding and get another partner? Like, do I go through all that process again? Or the one thing that I just really so much ignored that I should have done when I was 15, back when I was learning how to get this stuff online, was actually build it myself. Like actually learn how to build the back end and really just dedicate myself to doing it. And that's what I did. I mean, I stuck with it until it actually worked. And I had to try so many different programming languages because, you know, unlike you, I didn't take physics, so I didn't feel that comfortable with the more syntax-driven programming languages like Java. Like I just didn't feel as comfortable with that. And luckily, or even PHP, luckily my partner introduced me to Python. My former partner, he introduced me to it. He didn't do Python himself, but he knew that it was a little bit more obtainable. He had a friend, that person helped me out. And then I 3 or 4 months after I learned Python and Django, I was able to rebuild that entire thing that we were doing for like a year. And I was like, you know, I told you, I just got hooked.
Yeah. Python's amazing. Honestly though, Python is like, that is the language for web development.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things too. I'm not in it. Like I kind of stay in the Android space, but just from the time I've spent with Python, everything is just very intuitive, very easy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of people think that because it's so easy that it's not like a robust language, but it is. It's an awesome language. Like if I could do that for like app development, if I would have started with it, I probably would have been happier, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, there's a lot of really good things about so many programming languages that are known, right? Even unknown ones. There's probably like amazing things about them. And I think we're starting to see more and more of a convergence to a very like human-friendly programming language while also being like super powerful. Python has some examples of that. So does JavaScript. I don't use Java enough to really comment there, but I do know that JavaScript's in a similar, it's like pushing, it's more Pythonic now than it's ever been. And I think it's going to continue that way. But like, this is my story with software development is certainly not unique, right? You find this need and then you just decide that you're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And you and I are a good example of, years later, you're still doing it and you're still learning. I learn all the time.
Oh yeah, that'll never stop.
And there's still so much to learn, right? But it's so exciting. And I just really think that for most people, if you can just dedicate, like make that decision, I'm going to learn this because of so many reasons that I would love to talk about, but like, I'm going to learn this to do X, Y, and Z. Like it's absolutely more possible now than it's ever been. And I don't know, it's such an exciting time, especially with AI coming around the bend. Like we've got the potential that as a software developer, you're going to have that much more ability because of these AI, right? Like you and I, we can now build web applications and mobile applications on our own. We don't need a team of 10 or 15 or 100 like 15 years ago. You might have needed that. What AI is going to do is we're going to be able to make like global enterprise level, like close to like 1,000, 10,000 developers with just one person. And to me, that's super exciting because I want to be a part of that. And that's really what's pushing me for the future is being a part of what happens with software as it gets so much better.
I actually never, I don't think I've ever really thought about like me and the future of software development that hard before. My goals have always just been kind of like, I want to be, well, for me, I'm staying in the Android space just because there's so much to learn. I'm really trying to niche into Android. Yeah. I guess I never really thought farther than 5 years ahead. I always thought, in my 5-year timeline that I wanted to be the Android guy. Like, yeah, Mitchs and Android development needs to be synonymous. That was my goal. But yeah, I mean, even longer term, yeah, machine learning is like, other than my goal of making Mitchs and Android development synonymous, kind of like the underlying goal that I wanted to learn more about is machine learning, because that is absolutely the future. And like you said, it's just so powerful. You can do like you said, say the work of 1,000 people with something that you can build yourself. Like to be part of that would be something special for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, there's already a lot of tools that help any type of development, Android development, web development. There's already a lot of tools that do help speed up that process, that you don't have to remember everything, for example, right? You can't. Yeah, absolutely not. Google remembers everything for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's. I have my own personal assistant. His name is Google, or her name is Google. I ask her whenever I'm confused.
Totally. But I know that when I go through a serious process that takes me a long time to do something, and I have to like piece it all together, that to me is a really good time for a blog post. And that's for anyone learning. Like, it's something that is just not quite, pieced together, and you have to piece it together yourself. Make a blog post out of it. Your future self might thank you, because you might run into that again and completely forget about it. Because I've done this multiple times.
Me too.
Like, too many to count, where it's like, I went through all this stuff, pieced all these things together, got it working, didn't write it down, didn't make it a blog post, didn't make it step by step, because those things help me still, right? Like, I reference a lot of my blog posts with deployment related things. Just it's like, oh, I've already thought through it. I've already made the logic. just like programs. Why not just go back to that? You know?
I constantly do that too. I'm always, I forget the stupidest things. Like if that's why honestly, that's why I'm so nervous to do like a live coding stream thing, because
Yeah.
I would be Googling things constantly. I'd be looking at my GitHub. Oh, I forgot how to do that. Let me look at that project that I built before, because I do that constantly. And and I think a lot of people, at least a lot of beginners, would probably be surprised by how much I actually reference my own work just when I forget things. I think they would be amazed because it's constantly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's worth a test. I mean, some of your like viewers might actually want to see that. They want to be a part of it and ask you questions like, why did you think to go there? And then you can elaborate on those things. Maybe not. I don't know. It also might be a little mundane because you're sitting there thinking, right? Like, does anyone want to watch you thinking live? Maybe not. I don't.
Generally, it seems that people like raw things. They like real raw things. Unfortunately, those are the things that are generally uncomfortable for the person who's doing them. But yeah, I mean, there's value there because they get to see the truth. They get to see, like, to a lot of people, probably we look like amazing wizards who know everything. But the fact is that we are doing it on video. Like, we built it ahead of time. It's scripted in some cases. Like, this is all planned. It's all planned work, right? So doing it live is a totally different thing. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to reference things.
Certainly. Yeah. And that's how I got a lot better, though, is not so much the live part, but like I actually don't script most things. Like I've done it so many times now that I don't script stuff. I mean, there certainly is times where I'll record something. I'm like, that was terrible. I got to do it again. Or there's things that like fall through the cracks. And I get students that are like, what the heck did you just say? Or, you know, like early on. So I used to be addicted to Diet Coke. I don't drink soda now, but early on I was like drinking Diet Coke and caffeine to keep me going. And like subconsciously, I didn't even realize this. I would like burp just a little bit, like in between recordings. And I had no idea. Like you just don't, because I'm not rewatching it because like after you do it. And I had so many people go like, hey, you just burped. That was gross. Like, what the heck, dude? Like, aren't you like professional? Blah, blah. And it was like when I was selling courses too. So I was super like, didn't know what I was doing. I mean, those things don't happen anymore because I'm a very cognizant of it. But that's an example of the production side. But as far as like the actual software, I certainly made a lot of mistakes recorded on video and gave people bad advice sometimes. Because I didn't really know what I didn't know, obviously. And that's how I got better. And that's how I become a much better developer because of the questions that you get. So this is where, like, I mean, you and I, yeah, we could do it on video and some people can. Other people aren't as comfortable. But that's where like a blog post, no matter where you are in your journey, doing blog posts on what you learn, you will make mistakes, but that gives you the opportunity to have people ask you questions, which helps you fundamentally think about it in a much different way. I almost guarantee that you, Mitch, like you got so much better once you started teaching. Like, am I wrong?
Oh no, you're 100% right. It was like there's a staged process. It's like when I started, you get feedback. I would listen to it back and be like, oh, that was terrible, and I would redo it. Another thing was when I started working for Pluralsight, because their videos have to be perfect. Like they have to be flawless in sound, in the content, in everything. That was a big step up for me too, just because it makes you just look at it closer, and you can't have misinformation. You can't have any of that. So that was a big one too.
I will say that the misinformation stuff, I'm not perfect, certainly, but it should be absolutely minimized at this point in my career. But when I was starting, certainly made those mistakes. But those early mistakes, whether it was misinformation or just bad code, like all of those things just made me so much better. And that's where open source plays a big part too, where you can, as a beginner, you can release your code to the wild. I mean, it's a little
to the wild.
Nerve-wracking. Yeah. It's a little nerve-wracking sometimes because you don't want to be judged, right? It's just like raising your hand in a classroom. You don't necessarily want to ask a stupid question. And certainly stupid questions can be frustrating as a teacher. In some cases, they're like formulated almost as a great question, but the ones that are just a huge pet peeve are like, you clearly did not watch or listen or read any of the material, and you just want me to solve something for you.
I hate that.
Well, yeah.
It's like you're literally just trying to get me to do your homework for you.
Yeah.
That's like, what you're doing.
Don't be that guy. Just do the work, and I'll help you along. Like that's I like those students that like clearly have done a lot. They hit a roadblock and they're like, dude, I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they show me some stuff, and I'm like, here, this is what you do. And you're like, oh wow, I didn't even think of it that way. And that happens to me too. Like a student will come to me and say, like, even now, they'll come to me and say, like, hey, how does this work? I'm like, geez, I've never experienced that or come across that in any way. That now it's like I've learned something new, and that's part of the reason I continue to teach is like it's always something that you're learning, you know.
I might have to get my dog because it just ran outside. If it stops barking, because I think it's the noise is going to get picked up by the video, but it seems to.
I didn't
hear.
I heard a
okay.
Amount. Yeah, but.
Oh yeah, she's giving her. I can hear her, but we'll see how she is. Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No worries.
Now I completely forgot what we were talking about. There was good stuff too.
Yeah, just like the idea of as a student, as you're learning this, after you've made that decision and you're really going for it, don't hesitate to ask.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, it's one thing to take advantage of anyone's time that knows it, whether it's on Stack Overflow or the instructor or whomever, or somebody who's willing to answer a question on YouTube, which is awesome when stuff like that, or in your classes, it's awesome when stuff like that happens for sure. And I absolutely encourage anyone learning to answer other people's questions as well. But the actual asking process, it helps you rethink the problem, because as soon as you're starting to ask the question, you have to make it clear like what the problem is, or at least hopefully you attempt that so somebody can answer it. And that question will often like give you what the answer is. And that's actually a big part of the reason why I don't explain literally everything. I do explain a lot, but there's a lot of things that I leave out specifically so you have these questions and you start thinking about them, so that when you think about questions in hundreds of thousands, then you start to formulate a better understanding of the material, regardless of what it is. But that's a big part of the step-by-step too, is that like if you go step-by-step and you're sort of spoon-fed how to do it, and also you do get context, but you don't really know how to divert from how to do it, that's when you should start having those questions. You can put them out there. If you think them to yourself or write them down on a note, that's fine too. But like really, it's just like those questions are so unbelievably important that, you know, you fast forward a few years, they will just become second nature to you on how to solve them and how to ask your own and better questions.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like now, for example, I literally talk to myself. Like when I have a question, I literally like ask myself the question and say it out loud. It's like the process of just saying the question and hearing it. It just helps. Like so many times I've been in the middle of, you know, asking someone a question, and I type the sentence out and everything, and then I read it and I look at it and I'm like, I know the answer to that. That was stupid. And you just erase it. Yeah. But like when you're first thinking about it, it seems like you have no idea. You're like, you're stuck, right? But then, and so it's very, I think personally now, after getting so many questions on email, Instagram, YouTube, it's very easy for me to see the people who really, they did invest the time. They have a legitimate question and they're confused, as opposed to the people who literally just got stuck, didn't think, smacked on their keyboard, a question, hit enter. Like I can very clearly see those people. And and I just want to be clear, I have no problem with helping people. I think the most I ever spent on a person helping him was like 3 hours one time. It was just, it's because it was an interesting thing to me. And he had some weird question about connecting a Bluetooth thing, and he was having some weird issues. So I was like, I'm interested, actually. I would have helped him anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think I spent 3 hours with him just figuring it out, and we figured it out. But you know, usually it's like 5 minutes or whatever.
Totally.
But then if, as opposed to when I see those questions that I can tell you literally put no effort in, you just said, I'm confused, blah, you know, whatever. It's like,
right.
you didn't even spend the time to formulate a question. Like, I'm not going to help you. Like, yeah,
totally. And that's, I've come across that a number of times on live streams.
Oh, that'd be tricky when live.
Where I do Q&A, like my live streams haven't been like live projects. It's more of Q&A. I have done a live stream or a couple live streams where I was actually coding, but then I would get just tons of questions that were really interesting, but weren't related to what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that just happened over and over. So I just started doing Q&As.
You still do the Q&As?
I haven't been. I've been really busy with another project that I'll talk about some other time. But I've been really busy with that, and just haven't been doing a whole lot of stuff on YouTube the last few months in this summer. Because myself too, I'm always trying to learn the next thing as well. So I find that it's probably a good idea to step back from teaching sometimes, retool, get some more information, and move forward. That doesn't mean I don't answer questions. I still always do that. It's just actually producing content. I think I've made over 3,000 videos in the last 5 years. And
you have a lot of videos, even like your Udemy, like you have a ton of Udemy videos too. Like your Udemy is very successful.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, it was certainly in some cases, especially as I was starting out, I'm like, you know what, instead of polishing the course and doing an old project, I want to like continue anyone's like line of thinking and doing a new project instead of repolishing an old course. Right. So I started off with e-commerce, and then I moved into like, I think a geolocator or a matchmaker. I can't remember exactly which was the next project, but that transition was deliberate because I didn't want to just redo the same course over and over to make that great. Instead, I wanted to do these different projects so I could take on a different challenge, and then so could my students. So with that, if you really want to finish a project, it's not going to be 20 videos long. It just can't. Like, it's just not possible. And then I kept getting asked for more depth, so that's what I would do. And then it ended up turning out where I would make a huge project. And honestly, I'm the type of person that's like, once I'm done with one, it's like, oh, great, I'm done. Okay, what's the next project? And then I would just keep doing that. And that's where, like, I mean, you can see on my GitHub, there's spikes of like code commits, and then there's nothing. Sometimes it's actually me doing another project that's not related to coding for entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's just I need a break from producing so much content. Because like I've talked to some friends that produce content that's not technical necessarily, and they make like one video a week, so or maybe two, so anywhere from 52 to 104 a year. I'm like, whoa, I made 150 videos last month, or more, or like last week. I mean, that's certainly have happened. But on top of that, it is technical. So the fact that it's technical allows me to make that quantity, right? So it's that I'm doing a tutorial. You don't have to be super creative with it, right? Like you certainly are, but it's not like some of these like Casey Neistat, a YouTuber. It's not like him where he's like creating this story and it's like got to be interesting for 10 minutes. I mean, the fact that he does one a day, that's like, wow, that's really impressive with all that in mind, right? But even he got burnt out, so he doesn't do it as much. That's like kind of an example that like when I saw that he was doing videos every day, I'm like, well, there's no reason I can't do that or a lot more than that because I'm super interested in this stuff. I'm super interested in helping people. And where you say you help somebody for 3 hours and work through this problem, personally, I would have been like, oh, that's an interesting problem. I might have researched all of it and sent them the answer without necessarily working with them hand in hand, or I'll quite literally make a course out of it if it's something that I found interesting enough as a problem to make a course out of. One of them was like launching on AWS, a specific service on Amazon Web Services like one of them, like I just never really had a need to do it. And then somebody or a few people were asking about it. So I'm like, oh, you're going to take this down. And then it happened in no time. I released like 10 to 12 videos on it, and then it was done. And then like that happens all the time. So like for me, the helping part, the way I help people, in my opinion, yes, I answer their questions, and yes, I can put them in the right places. But so much of it is it goes back to the content that I've created, because I've shaped it and re-released some things as a result of all these questions. Like that's why I remake an e-commerce course in the first place. Like to me, it's like, oh, I've already covered it in so many ways, but then I get hundreds of questions for it. So then I re-release it, addressing so many of those things that happen throughout.
It's a good way to do it. It's a good way to do it. I personally haven't. I think I've only updated one of my courses on Pluralsight because something about the API changed, so it literally broke, so I had to fix it. But yeah, mostly, actually, all I've done so far is release projects, and they just sit there forever. I haven't even touched them. But I'm sure certainly in the future it's going to happen. Like I haven't been doing it as long as you. I've only been I think making YouTube videos for maybe 2 years or 2.5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's been great. Like I really enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to more tools that help the editing process. I don't edit that much, but like there's certain aspects like I mean, how great would it be to have a screen recorder that and also a code typing recorder at the same time? So it like literally gets the identical code that's in your video at that timestamp automatically.
Oh yeah.
Like, so you don't necessarily, as a beginner, you don't have to go to GitHub, and then also as a producer, you don't have to like put all this stuff together.
Yeah, there's a lot of tedious work in there that a lot of people don't know that we do. Like usually now what I do is I make branches on GitHub, but I think what you were doing was you would make a commit and then save the link to the commit and put that for the source code. But either way, it's like, okay, you write a video, stop, do the GitHub stuff, blah, blah, blah. Make sure it's all good. Continue. There's a lot of like inefficiencies there that could definitely be solved with some kind of software. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to happen eventually. It has to, right? There's enough people that sort of need something like that.
Yeah.
Where maybe it's a combination of like a blog post and a video or something. But like those things would be really, really cool, because it would save a lot of time, because then in theory, maybe the video could be regenerated if you change the code, right? Like if you actually go into whatever recorded it, if you go in there and quite literally change one line of code, the video then updates with that same line of code. That would be amazing. I would love that. I would absolutely buy it. So I hope somebody makes it.
I probably would too. Yes. Anything to save time and editing and all those little things where I'm not building something or creating something. I don't like to do any of it. I hate editing. Yeah. I hate doing all that stuff, but I have to do it because I have no option. I'm in the middle of trying to hire a video editor, and it's very difficult. It's basically like a job in itself. Like it's basically like I'm doubling my editing time, because I have to basically go through the edit myself, give it to them, review it, and then I'm paying them for it too. So it's like I'm losing. I could have done it myself in a third of the time, and I'm paying you to do it, but they're learning. So it's like, yeah, it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, and that goes back to like, well, then what if you just made the recording that much better, where you didn't need to edit much? I don't know how or what you're doing with your edits, but you've seen all my videos. Like I don't record. I mean, I don't edit too much. I mean, they've definitely changed a little bit, but I've tried to make the process such that you just sort of jump in and you're like right there and you're going through the code. Not so much of like there's like cool animations that bring the code in and stuff like that. I think it might add the feeling of professionalism. But I don't know if it actually adds to what one learns.
I don't think it does. I have a good perspective on this, because my YouTube stuff I do just like you. It's very raw, and you just kind of go in, and it's literally step by step. I'm not like, here we're at this step, now I'm gonna skip a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes, and you're over here. It's just like you do. But with Pluralsight, it's not like that. It has to be like super professional. super refined. So there's no like, and you have to explain everything. So usually I don't even write the code. I put the code in and I walk through it with like callouts and things like that, just because I can't have mistakes, and it's just more efficient to do it that way. So it's kind of like two completely different things. And I
kind of more like a recorded PowerPoint. Is it more like that then? Or?
Basically, like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at the IDE still, and we're going through it and we're testing, but I'm not actually writing most of it live. I'm talking through it. Like I record the voice and the audio separate, and then I put them together and edit. So it's a totally different thing. And just, my perspective personally is I think the raw way is the better way. Like, but Pluralsight doesn't let me do it. I think when they see every single step and like the explanation while you're doing it, sure, you're gonna fumble your words, sure, you're gonna make typos and things like that, but I think it's just overall better that way.
Yeah. And that's I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see where that goes. And I don't know if you've heard this much, but I've heard people that just like refuse to watch videos. They like only want to read it. So whether it's a blog post or a book, that's all they want. And I've like avoided making. Well, I make a lot of blog posts, but like a specific book, like a step-by-step book, which is interesting that I haven't done it, because that's what literally started my journey, was a step-by-step book. But like, I don't know, like doing an actual book is a lot of work. And something about recording that just like is so much more fluid to me than like, writing like a blog post and then doing that 50 times or something like that,
So I actually, like, personally, I don't like watching video. I liked it when I was a beginner. Like when I was first starting video, I couldn't really read blog posts. It just wouldn't make sense to me. So I had to watch the video, because that way you get the whole picture. I get to see everything they do, like everything. So I can see, but now, I definitely lean heavily towards blog posts, Stack Overflow. Just because for me now it's faster, because I can just glance through it, see exactly what I need, and move forward. I don't need to watch the 5, 10, 15, 20-minute video or whatever. But not that there isn't value. It's just me personally. So
I've found that deep learning and machine learning, you got to consume everything. That's been my experience. Because there's a lot of things that are just lost sometimes in blog posts. In my own experience and my own opinion, like, because there's a lot of context that some of these more high level, they're just harder. I don't know. Like I feel the same.
So it could be too that like, how long have you been learning machine learning? Like, just in terms of total time spent, maybe.
Oh, I mean, I've been doing it for a few years.
Okay, so it's not like you're a beginner or something.
No. Yeah, definitely not a beginner. I mean, like even super early on learning Python stuff, there was like Scikit-learn's been out for a while. I can't remember when that came out, but like there's been machine learning libraries for a while that you sort of have to dabble in when you're first starting out. I think just to see what you like and what you're good at, and so like there's definitely like building a neural network or understanding what neural networks are. I have a pretty good grasp on it for sure, but like there's definitely so many areas that I can get better at. Like you could spend a few years like and still not be super good at it, but that's because it's really complicated. That's why it's so valuable. That's not the only reason, but I mean, there's certainly things that are really approachable. You can read a blog post and have a really good idea, but there's definitely other things that, like I said, like neural networks or recurrent neural networks or GANs, like all of these different things that I think fall apart for me when you're reading a blog post, because there's just a lot of terms. There's a lot of things that are lost in a post, and that's why I like some videos for that specifically.
Yeah,
I get it for like if I were to try and pick up like a new library in Python or JavaScript, those ones I'm pretty good in. I would probably prefer a blog post at this point now as well. But again, if the context is lost in that post, sometimes it's good to just hear their opinion. Like, this is,
I just in general, like when I'm just day-to-day blog posts generally, but like if I'm tackling something that I'm really unfamiliar with, for sure video is best, because yeah, like you said, it's the context, like the things they're doing for whatever reason. You get to see it all. You get the big picture. So it's not yeah, the context isn't lost in because you're watching the video, obviously.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean, like what's your, so you want to be the guy for Android?
I want to be the guy for Android. Yes, that's sort of the goal right now.
So like why Android, and why do you want to be the guy for it? I'm really curious about that.
Oh, okay. Why? Well, Android, I ended up in Android because in school, the only programming class I took I think I took like an introductory Java class, and then I took one other Java class. And so I also took a Python class, just one. But so Java was basically what I knew-ish, I guess, the only thing I sort of knew. So when I decided I was going to learn, the initial goal was to get a programming job. So I started learning in my last semester of school. My goal was to get a programming job. So I was thinking, okay, what can I learn to basically show employers that I know how to code and get a job? So I ended up by choosing mobile because you can actually build full projects, and I thought that was cool. One person could build a full project. I had no guidance too, so I'm pretty much like just seeing whatever. And I knew Java, so I'm like, okay, let's go Android then, and that was it. And so why Android? Just because I ended up on it. There's no reason that I was like, no, this is the one I gotta do or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And why do I want to be the Android guy? Because I want to be known in the space. I want to be known as an expert in the space. That's, yeah, I think that's I think generally you will be successful if you're an expert in any field. So being an expert in my field is my goal.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's great. I mean, I guess like I'm just like really fascinated with all sorts of technology. So like if Android ends up being something that I'm drawn to, which I'm not currently drawn to it other than using like React Native, I probably would go that direction. And I guess like with how much the programming languages will evolve, I anticipate that there probably be a time that I don't use Python anymore or JavaScript. I mean, it's inevitable that those things will evolve to the point where they just look way different than where they're at today. That I'm like, I don't know, I'm okay with just being like super interested in stuff, and then I teach what I'm interested in, than being associated to one thing in particular, even though I think I'm probably mostly known for Django.
100%. You are the Django guy. I would introduce you as the Django guy. If you want to learn web development, learn Django from Justin Mitchell.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that's Django's put me on the map, so I'm okay with that. I love Django. It's a great language, and
yeah,
you know, there's still so much more stuff that can be done with software. It's just, I don't know, like I can't emphasize enough how excited I am for the next few years as to what's coming. And I do think that web is going to be playing a big role to that. So like being very familiar with how you can store data through the internet with a database and with a web, potentially with a web application, but definitely through a database. Django is like a really good example, a really good thing that does that. I think in a fairly straightforward way. I mean, if you give it a shot, I think that's the case, right? So your backend stuff, when you save things now with Android, are you using Firebase a lot, or do you use Django, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I use Firebase just because it's so easy. Like their tools are, because I'm a teacher, it makes it very easy to build a full project because they have authentication tools, they have database tools, they have storage tools, they have all kinds of other stuff too that I haven't really dove deep into, like the machine learning kit. I haven't even looked at that yet just because I haven't had time, but that looks super cool. Some of the stuff that they advertise on there, like facial recognition stuff, barcodes, and everything with every Firebase tool is just so damn easy. Like it's awesome. And so I basically stick towards Firebase. I've built personal projects using websites talk to using an app that talks to a website through a REST API, that's great too. But yeah, generally my projects are Firebase just because they're easy, just to build a full project.
I mean, when you're working on the client side, you need a backend that you could use probably quickly, especially if you're teaching. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess like Parse. Did you ever use Parse, like Facebook's Parse?
No.
So it was very, very similar to Firebase, and that exactly all the things you're saying. It just, they decided to shut it down. I'm not sure why, but they shut it down. And I guess ever since that's happened, I've been skeptical about things like Firebase for production environments, for like a real company. Like if you're starting to build something real, it's probably really, really good, and it's probably not going to go away anytime soon, because you can use Firebase with Django even if you were so inclined. But
yeah,
I think one of the things that you might be interested in doing for your students is having your own REST API that they can work with, that has a back end that you control, because the worst case scenario for a lot of your content going forward, especially if you do it for the next 5 years, is when these things shutter, and then like 5 years of content is no longer that useful. I'm probably speaking out of turn. It's not.
No, it makes sense. What you're saying is perfectly logical. Yeah, a lot of my content relies on a single tool, really. Yeah. And that, what if Google blows up? I don't know. Or just the more likely thing is they decide to cut the funding to Firebase or whatever,
Yeah.
And the tool's shut down. So I get what you're saying.
It certainly doesn't seem likely, but
yeah, definitely.
I mean, this is also why I think it's so important that more entrepreneurs learn how to build software, is whether it's mobile applications, because that's obviously like a go-to thing that you should be doing, or it's building server-side technology. It's like, you never know what's going to happen to Google. Like, sure, they're doing really, really well right now, but there's so many examples of companies that were doing really, really well that aren't around anymore. I think of the S&P 100. I think there's like of the last 100 years, I feel like there's like 5 companies, maybe 3 of the last 100 years. And I think like probably 80% of them probably died in the last 25 years.
It's funny, this thought never even crossed my mind, but it's actually a very practical way to think. Like I never thought in a million years, hey, what if for some reason Firebase isn't there one day? I never even thought of that. But yes, that makes perfect sense.
It's probably because you focus on the client side, right? Like I think about the back end technologies, and I see other ones that come out, and I have to wonder these things, Like WordPress has an API that you can build on. I'm not sure if it's on every WordPress project, but you can certainly use. I believe you can certainly use WordPress.com to build client applications on top of WordPress, in a similar fashion that you would do, not the exact same, but a similar fashion that you do with Firebase, right? So there's just a REST API, and I don't know, like, is WordPress going to be around forever? Like that's another potential option that you could have, or might be worth teaching on, because a lot of people use WordPress and a lot of people have potentially the need for an Android application. Might as well see other solutions maybe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you mentioned the putting up a server, a Django website, that's something I have thought about a lot. It's I think that would be a great idea, because not only would they get to see kind of that other way, it's the way to do it without Firebase, basically, putting up a server, handling login and registration, talking to a database, all that stuff. I thought about doing it. The only thing is I don't know if my audience would necessarily want to see the Python side of the world. So then my next the next thing I thought about was, okay, I could just build it, and then I could teach them how to communicate with a REST API, even though they didn't build the server themselves. But then you run into the problem of, okay, now I have to host this server forever, basically. And as long as my course exists, my server has to sit there with the REST API up. Yeah, and I have to worry about limiting requests too, because people could potentially build an application that spams my server, and I don't know. There's just all these things. It's an awesome idea, I think. Like in a perfect world, that's an excellent idea. But then you consider all the other things. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that it would help you design in a way that would correlate directly with a lot of your courses. And in the long run, it might be a really good thing for them to learn how to work with multiple different kinds of APIs, multiple different kinds of backends. I mean, it's certainly enough to manage, but at the other side of it, it's an additional service that you're providing for your students. That if you ever do want to get into more server-side stuff, and because there's certainly Java server-side related things, right? Mm-hmm. That you could eventually do as well, or if you want server-side machine learning related things that you're getting into yourself that you want to allow your students to use, there's like those benefits as well, right? So like if you get into image prediction that's done on the server, or you augment it to what they do on their phone, it might be worth it. It might be worth maybe not right away, but down the line. Now, if you were to build it yourself, you could absolutely teach on it, and sure, it's a diversion from what you have, but you yourself, in testing new grounds or new potential audiences, or the ones that you have that might want to go deeper, they might want to go to the back end. Perhaps they don't want to do it in Python, because like I don't know what the Java equivalent of Django is, but I'm sure there is one. There's got to be. Java's like what, number one?
I think it's called Spring. I don't know, but I think it's called Spring.
Yeah, that sounds right. But like, I mean, that might be a new area that's cool for you to go into, because sooner or later you might have students that are super interested in that side of things. I mean, that's how I teach Angular, I teach React, I teach a lot more JavaScript stuff than I did years ago, because I get so many students that are just interested in the way I teach concepts to move into those things. And granted, Angular and React are very, very heavily used in web development anyway, that it would make sense for somebody who teaches web development to get into some of those great tools. But the other side of it is like reaching with customers and then expanding your own skills. But also, when you do build those things, you start to learn and have a greater appreciation for the other aspects of the software you currently work with. And you start to hope for what's coming, right? So like the new things in JavaScript, like make me want those things in Python.
I know what you mean.
The Node package manager is so good that I wish, like pipenv or virtual environments, those things are good too, but like for whatever reason, npm is just really nice. And then like they have these linting tools that are just really good too. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you start to see in these other languages that you can start to find benefit for yourself, but also your students. Because I would argue your role is to help them gain confidence and also understand these things, but at the same time realize that we, like, being beholden to certain tools that might go away, that makes us less flexible to what's more likely to happen is them to change or to go away altogether, right?
Yeah. Everything you're saying makes complete sense. It's like being able to weather the storm sort of thing. If you know, a language disappears, a tool disappears, you got to be able to say, oh well, I'm going to use this other one now, and just be perfectly comfortable with it, sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But you yourself, I mean, like, should you right now stop using Firebase and build your own backend? That's a really tough thing to answer, because like, part of me is like, absolutely yes. The other part of me is like, no, because if it goes down at 3 in.the morning and you just can't get to it for a week, like that's probably not good on the rest of your business, right? Where if Firebase goes down at 3 in.the morning, it's going to be back up at 3:30 in.the morning, right?
Or it won't at all, because they have backups on backups on backups.
Exactly, and certainly you could build that into your API. You could have a load balancer and have many different backup servers for your REST API. But then it gets into managing that architecture and do all this stuff that takes away from you building content, the thing that people are there for, right? And that's also why I've been able to make so much content. Is like I don't take on freelance jobs because first of all, I don't necessarily want to do them. Sometimes I do. It's rare though.
I don't.
It's because you're not building something you want to build, right? You're building for what a client wants, and there's so much back and forth. And but that's, for some people, that's great. That's what they want. That's what they want, that sort of relationship where they have direction on what they're building. But all of that takes away from content and actually building content and helping other people learn this stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I like the creativity aspect is the thing that keeps me coming back. It's like it's like my drug. I like to just think about something, build it, and put it out. That's what I like to do. I don't want to build someone else's idea. Not that I wouldn't if I had to, but it's just like that's not what I want to do. Like if I was rich and didn't have to work, for example, I would probably just make YouTube videos. I would be making this. I'd just be learning stuff and making YouTube videos just for fun. I probably wouldn't produce as much, but I would do it for fun. I wouldn't be working for Pluralsight because I don't like the boundaries that they put me in, but I have to do it because I got to make money to live. So it's
So do you use Patreon right now, or like anything on your website to sell courses and whatnot?
I used your Braintree course actually, and that's how I accept payments on my website. Yeah,
nice.
It doesn't make a ton of money, but I make some money. I have mostly free courses. I have 2 paid courses on my website. They make one of them since I put it out. It consistently makes money. It's a good one. My camera one has been doing good too. So they're good. You know, I'm not getting rich off it, but they do make money. YouTube pays a bit. I think YouTube pays you about $350 a month, something like that. It's just extra money. But most of my income comes from Pluralsight, making Pluralsight courses.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that's not necessarily, that's a good thing, because once you get associated, like if you're the Android guy, it doesn't really matter where you are. People will start to see more of your content, and you can start to grow an audience and a following. Something that I find really interesting that I probably would have done more of early on is coaching, because that one-to-one coaching, you can ask for a lot because you're giving a lot. You're giving a lot more. Like first charging, you're giving a lot more value to them than you would be getting in return with these coaching situations. But $500 a month or something like that or more, because you'll be working with them hand in hand. You'll be able to review their code, things that if they were at a university, they're spending that, if not more, for the exact same thing, but they're not getting the same attention.
Right.
So like you could totally 100% do that. And you would also learn a lot in that process as well, which I would encourage for sure. Like if it was like, if I didn't I was lucky enough to be at the time when things really started picking up. So in 2013, online education was really picking up. So I sort of got on at the right time. I mean, if I was there even a few years before that, I think it would have been really beneficial. But if you were to really want to do YouTube full time, honestly, I think doing coaching and getting 10, 20 students every month, paying you around $500, that's a pretty good living. It's not like you're not going to be rich from it, but it's a pretty good living to where you can then focus on also making all this other content. And sure, it's a lot of time, but like right now, like if you had to jump on, like we're talking for a little over an hour and a half, if you had to jump on with a student and literally do something very similar, ask them a bunch of questions, look at some code, give them some advice, like you could probably do something really good for a number of people while also recording that to where you could sell those things to other students that are just looking to get better, or give them away for free, or there's a lot of different ways you could go about doing that. That's absolutely something I would have done early on is start coaching. And I've thought about it even now because producing content, it's taxing, but actually having that one-on-one interaction with somebody is something that I think is really beneficial, even if it's just bouncing ideas off of each other. Like a good friend of mine is an entrepreneur, and he asks me technical things all the time. It's a lot of fun for me because like I'm helping guide him with managing this process, and also I'm helping my friend. But there's no reason that we couldn't do that as a coaching or consulting sort of thing, while also providing like unique experience that they're going through as well, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, because any university class, I don't know what it costs where you are to go to school, but here you're going to spend $500 to $1,000 for a class. And if you were to just spend, you only spend, what do you usually spend, maybe 3 hours a week in a classroom? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even spend that with them. And I'm sure they would get much, much more value just talking to me and going through their code or going through their stuff. And yeah, you're probably right. And I wouldn't feel guilty taking that money because it would certainly be worth it for sure for them.
And the other thing is you can offer huge refund policy. Like, hey, if in 3 months you're still unhappy about what you did with me 3 months ago, I'll give you your money back. Yeah. And like the majority of people are honest and won't do that.
Yeah,
right?
You'll get a couple though.
You might get a couple for sure, but that's where you can do the weeding process. You can really see where they are. But like the other side though too is if somebody's like potentially a really good student, but they legitimately can't afford X, then you just go back and forth and figure out something that they can't afford or that they can do. Where like some of these people might want to jump on these calls, write notes, give you feedback, and do all this stuff that might actually help you, but
edit my videos.
Not something you edit your videos. There you go. It's not necessarily something that you would want to pay someone to do, but it might be something that's really worthwhile. I don't know. I feel like you could grow quite a bit with that if it was something that you were interested in doing. I have a few friends that do coaching for other sort of things, and they love it. It's like their favorite part of teaching, because you get that one-on-one interaction and you get to see what somebody's going through firsthand even with your own material. I mean, Mitch, yourself, like if you could have met with me 3 hours a week, every week that you were going through Django stuff, do you think it would have been beneficial for you?
Oh yeah, there was many times when I'd be stuck on something for like a day, like literally a day, and like something would go wrong in my server and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what to do. Great.
Yeah.
And it was just like a stupid thing. Like I just go to a folder and change this configuration file or something, and then it was good. Yeah. It takes 2 seconds, and I would spend 8 hours plus on it and like go to sleep angry.
Been there.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there's certainly value for you going through that process. And you went through it, you stuck with it. Yeah. I absolutely know we both have students that don't.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they might have signed up for coaching that would have pushed them over the edge and would have stuck with it, and now would have been in a completely different place in their life. And that's why I would encourage you to consider it, because we absolutely need more software developers. Absolutely. Like, I mean, you should teach Django too. Like, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I guess. I thought about it. It's just for whatever reason, I have it in my head that I want to be the Android guy. Just because it's that I want the reputation, and then whatever I decide, I don't know what, it's arbitrary really, because when am I the Android guy? At what point do I become the Android guy? But yeah, I mean, doing other things, Django and Python in particular, I think is what I would probably do.
You have your own unique take on it, and that doesn't mean that you've got to like diss me because you learned from me or whatever. Like, I don't feel that way. Like, I would rather, it would be amazing if you started doing Django and just crushed me in Django. It's like, hey, this is my student that has now really become the master. Like, I know that's not going to happen because of how much I've done it, unless I tap out, which will happen eventually, right? Like, I'm not always going to do Django. like I've been doing it for almost 6 years. I'm closing in on 6 years of teaching Django. That there's no way I'm going to do it forever, right? And that's just the reality of it. But the other side of it is like, you certainly have students that really like you, that want to learn more things from you. And we have this unique opportunity to do that. And it also allows us to learn a lot more in the software space. Like I get the desire to want to be the Android guy, but you nailed it on the head. It's like, when are you the Android guy? Are you not that guy now?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Like what does that mean? Like 1 million subscribers on YouTube?
It's arbitrary.
Like absolutely arbitrary. And to your students, your avid students, you are the Android guy, you know? Just like to my students that took Django, I'm the Django guy.
Justin Mitchell, the Django guy.
I certainly don't look at myself that way. But I mean, I realized that with Django, I had a niche. I was able to like really get out there early, and I was like one of those first guys actually doing a lot of Django stuff. But now there's a lot of them, and that's going to continue.
Oh yeah.
And I hope that you do it as well, because then you register with your students. And I mean, you could always tell people about me too. Like I'm happy about that. I mean, obviously you are, because we're talking right now. But
anytime anybody ever says anything about web development, I'm like, Justin Mitchell, just go see that guy. Go see that guy. He'll take care of you.
Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you know, like think back to your favorite teacher. This is the other part of the reason like I do teach is like, think about your favorite teacher you had growing up, and whether it's like actually in school or in university or like a coach at a sport, like think about that person and you're like, wow, like they had a tremendous impact on my life, and you're just one person, right? We are lucky enough to do that same thing with potentially just one person, you know? And like Mitch, like I don't remember how much we communicated with while you were going through my stuff.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So like I've definitely had students where I've communicated a lot with, and then I don't hear from them for years, and then they tell me about the things that they've been doing, and it's awesome, you know? But it's like, then I got to get back to work and meet that next student that I can help impact. And I think back to those teachers that had those impacts, it's hard to remember like what they did specifically, or even if that teacher would have had that same impact in a different subject, right? If they were teaching science, but they did English too, and that's where I got it. I have no idea. I think it's possible that it would be. And as an educator, I feel like it's our responsibility to continue to foster those relationships with students in different ways.
It's a really good perspective. It is. You've honestly sort of changed the way that I think about what I want to do with my YouTube channel and things. I probably will start doing other things now, to be honest, because it's a really good perspective. You're right. We have a unique opportunity to affect a lot of people and potentially help them learn, because for whatever reason, they like what we do. They like the way that we communicate is what it is. And so why not teach them more things? Like why it's selfish of me to say that I want to be the Android guy, really. It sort of is, because when I could be teaching them all kinds of other things.
Yeah, I mean, like, but if you lose interest or whatever, then don't. I mean, like, it's you got to do what's right for you, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, how cool is it that we make a living teaching people the skills that we want to learn? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so awesome. Like, I always want to learn more and more software, and I get to teach other people the same. And for whatever reason, they like me doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool.
Yeah, and the other side of it is like, you might teach Django stuff in just a slightly different way that is from me, that your students just want to see it from you, and they don't want to see it from me. Even if they might begrudgingly watch a few, hopefully not, but they might, and then go back to Mitch and be like, dude, you gotta teach this one. This guy's too fast, or whatever. You know what I mean? He uses his hands too much.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Yeah. So like, I think the arbitrary metric of being the Android guy, you can still be that person, but there's definitely some merit, I think, into taking advantage of where we are in the world right now and what we know, that you can absolutely help just one person. I mean, that's amazing. Because like I totally get caught up sometimes in the numbers of like, oh, on YouTube I have this and blah blah blah, and it's like, well, does that actually even matter if you can help one person more than 1,000 that barely even watch, barely even do anything, but that one person, it drastically changes their life. I think that's pretty cool, and that's something that I like hearing about and being a part of, even if I don't hear about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
and we are approaching an hour and a half. We need to end this, but but I would like to do another one sometime. So maybe in the future. We definitely seem to have a lot to talk about. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of finishing up, I got a question for you. What's the thing kind of on your horizon? What's the next thing coming up from you that people could expect to see? Where can they get more information about you? Anything like that. This is your sales pitch right now.
Sure. So I'm unbelievably interested in things, all sorts of things. Software just happens to be like the main thing that I'm interested in, and it's what I teach. And the fact that I'm so interested in it, I think, is what makes me so unique. It's like, I want to build these things. I want to learn more about them. So I turn around and then teach what I learn. And over time, I've gotten a lot better at it. I think I'm, kind of biased there, but as far as like where you can find me, I'm on codingforentrepreneurs.com. Like I really want to help other people find this passion for software that I've found, because I think its implications are so huge for the future. And artificial intelligence is something that I'm really, really fascinated with, and I'm continuing to dive more and more into, because there's one thing about automating like business with software, with an online business. It's another thing to not just automate it, but then also to advance things using predictions and just moving forward. Like once we have automated cars, that's going to be one of the most amazing innovations ever. It's going to fundamentally change how everyone lives their lives at some point.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to be a part of that. And I think that software, understanding software feeds into that so much. And like Coding for Entrepreneurs has been a result of that journey for me, and it's going to continue to be such. And I don't know, like I'm just super interested in stuff, and I want to help other people find that interest, and more importantly, actually grab and obtain practical skills to make things happen. It's a really long way of pitching it, but it's true. That's what it is.
Well, if it's true, then that's the way you got to say it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could do the official pitch, which is like Coding for Entrepreneurs is a project-based coding class for non-technical founders. I mean, that is still absolutely true, but I've found that like just developing this sense of like interest in something is much more what I'd rather have somebody take away from this, right? Like if software is not your thing and you want to develop interest in something else, go for it. But software interacts with all of our lives. We just like I think it's our responsibility to really get a better understanding of how it works. So yeah.
That's 100% it. 100%. You nailed it with that one. So
well, thanks, Mitch. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, let's definitely do it again. I don't know when, but we will have to do it again for sure.
Tentatively.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for coming on my second podcast. You were a great guest, and I will talk to you next time.
All right, man. Thanks. See you later.